Coming to you from the city of the weird. Exploring topics from the esoteric and unexplored to dimensions unknown. Shining a light of truth on the darkest corners of our reality. Welcome to the Curious Realm. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Curious Realm, continuing coverage of the 2024 International Remote Viewing Association Conference here aboard the Mariner of the Seas. We have the pleasure of being joined by Carl Anthony McLelland. He is a remote viewer from the UK. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
We've had a great few days just lapping around, talking about remote viewing, things like that. How did you first come to the world of remote viewing, Carl?
Wow. Just over 5 years ago, I was in a building and I was doing some meditation. And I got into what I soon found out to be a session.
Okay.
And I sees this guy who I know, alive and well on the earth plane, and he's in his pocket at a door and opening it, right? And I'm like, wow, what's happening here? So because I clock everything with being an investigator former,
Okay.
I was looking and thinking, right, driveway, gravel, single garage, 12-foot conifers, round white door, hinges to the left, I'm collating everything. And I sort of followed him in. And as we go through the door, I'm looking dark blue carpet, floral, stairs go off to the right, 90-degree switch upstairs. Oh, I can see the kitchen. Bob's me head in the living room to the left, and I'm going, coffee table, couch, television, and that was it, right? So now I'm like, what has just happened? You know, I'm really like confused.com here, right? Yeah. So I come out the building, and I'm trying to get my head around, because when I've done mediumship, that usually plays like a video, as this did.
Sure.
But of course, the people have passed over. And I knew this bloke to be alive and well.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of leant on a railing, and there's a small car park about 20-30 yards away, and the cars are side on to me, maybe about a dozen cars. So I looked and thought, I'm going to try it again. So I'm really excited now. So I sort of stood there, did what I did before, and then into a session, went over to a car. And British cars, there's 2 letters, 2 numbers start. So I sort of got 2 letters and 2 numbers in my head, proceeded to put my head through the boot, the trunk of the car, right, through the metal, turned to the right, and I'm going, right, 2 black umbrellas, about 2.5 foot long, a large golfing umbrella, about 3.5 foot long, blue, red, yellow, white. Went to the left. Oh, sort of a little black sports bag. Didn't put my head in that for privacy issues. I mean, I'd already stuck my head in his car. Wow. And that was that. Now, as some of the people were coming out this building, I was asking a couple, like, and it was a black car. I said, anybody ever? And this guy says to me, yeah, I have a black car. I went, is the registration the start? He went, well, you've got 1 letter right out the 2 and 1 number. I went, that's fine.
Wow.
I said, is it the black one there? He went, yeah. I said, this is going to sound really strange to you.
Can you open the trunk for me?
Have you got a body in the trunk?
Yeah.
I said, if I told you some of the major contents of the boot of your car, would you humour me and you just tell me yeah, no, truthfully? He went, these umbrellas. I went, stop, no. Let me say it. So I said, is the 2 black umbrellas about 2.5 foot? I said, and a large golfing umbrella. He went, yes.
Wow.
I says, is the golfing umbrella blue, red, yellow and white? He said, well, you've got one colour wrong, but the others, yeah. He says, I keep the 2 umbrellas, you know, England, a lot of rain.
Yeah.
He says, and the golfing umbrella, I leave there for when I put my golf clubs in and, you know, go on driving range or whatever. And he's like looking at me now, and he's like, ooh, and I can see it. And I went, is there a sort of small black sports bag to the left? He went, yeah. Wow. He said, I use that for when I stop over at my partner's. I went, thanks so much. I really, now wow. I'm like imploding, exploding. And I'm thinking, what has just happened? This is so strange. But yet again, it wasn't, because we're doing evidential mediumship and
Sure.
spiritual healing. But I couldn't get my head round. I'd never come across anything. So I'm thinking, what is it? Now, in between this and me researching now, because I just had to like literally run home and I'm Googling and trying to bring the sort of questions down small, then Google wouldn't
Sure.
give me a million answers. And I found the term remote viewing, right? But in between this, the guy who I'd seen at the house, which was before the car, and followed him in with the conifers,
Yeah.
he was with his wife. And I felt a bit guilty. I thought, have I actually gone in the house? Have I dreamt it? And I thought, it's something I obviously wouldn't do it on the here and
something
now.
a little voyeuristic.
Of course. So I
Yeah.
went over and I said, listen, and I sat down with him. He was having a coffee. I said, I'm feeling a bit guilty about something and I need to get it off my chest, and I hope I don't offend you. But it is going to sound strange. And they went, right, go on. So I told them what had happened. And I said, and I seen you and you was going in and all of it. And she said, there was like gobsmacked. And she said, do you know what? She said, you've described the staircase, the house, right? Everything. I even got the name of the street because a politician jumped in front of me, a British one.
Wow.
Whose surname was Whitcomb, and then bobbed out. And that was like crazy. It was Whitcomb Drive, but I couldn't relate that. And she said, yeah, she said, there's only one problem. I went, right, go on. I said, hit me with the criticism. Let's do this. She went, it isn't actually. She said, we haven't lived in that house for 10 years. We moved out 10 years ago and moved into a bungalow as we were getting older, no stairs. So now I'm even more,
Wow, yeah, I see that.
I'm even more blown away because I'm thinking, I've gone back in time. Not time travel per se.
Sure.
But I've looked back in time.
Yeah.
I've gone back a minimum, it was confirmed a minimum 10 years. So now I'm thinking, what is this? You know, what is this fiendish witchcraft here type of deal? Excuse me. And I brought the term remote viewing up, as I mentioned, and of course there's a wealth of information.
Sure.
And I'm looking at like, wow, SRI, military, Stargate, and I thought, too much at the moment. I'll just move you along there for later. I'll look at the more basic, you know, nuts and bolts. And then I found target pools. So I made sure there was like credible remote viewing trainers.
Sure. Yeah.
So I thought, right, I'm going to give the target pools a go. And I was battering half a dozen off in an hour. And what I was doing was going in, just any single shape or anything, out, check it. Oh, next, right? So it was counterproductive, but it wasn't in the way that I did learn from the mistakes. And it was a good learning curve for me.
Yeah.
And the best time for me to do this was when I was tired. I'd get on the bed and I was bodily, you know, fatigued, but my mind was still ticking.
Yeah.
Maybe usually 1:30 in the morning, 2:30 English time. And I think I'm going to do some target pool. And I believe it's because I was more relaxed and just, you know.
Interesting.
Like
yeah.
So in the end, I was doing these for a while and beating them off. And I was getting 4 or 5 out of 6 every time, but only a particular shape because I weren't trained.
Sure.
I weren't disciplined.
Now, with that in mind, you mentioned a couple things. Security. You did work in the military. You had a bit of a military career. During your time in security or military, had the words remote viewing or anything like that ever come up?
Never.
Never. Now, you also mentioned mediumship during your time in the military and security. Were you doing mediumship?
No.
No?
No.
Had you ever had psychic leanings, mediumship leanings, things like that in your life?
Yeah, there's been
before
things. There was a certain time that me and a mate of mine, we went out, I think it was one midweek day, Wednesday, Thursday type of deal. We went in a pub, there was a quiz night on. So he was having a couple of pints, as you do. And he says, yeah, go on, I'll join the quiz night, bit of fun. We're doing the quiz, didn't win. But at the end, the bloke who's doing it says, right, I'm going away to, I think it was Spain or somewhere, with my girlfriend tonight. We're actually flying out from Manchester Airport. I've got my passport here. I want you to try and guess, as he worded it, my passport number. And I think the British passports at the time was like 2 letters and 8 numbers, something like that, right? So a number and letters come in my head, and I just wrote it down, and then he collected them all, and it was like you can win free drinks for the rest of the evening type of deal. And then he come across to me, and he was quite white, and he said, "You were scary." I went, "What? What have I done?" Like, he was laughing, and he went, "You have freaked me out." I went, "Go on." I said, "Don't tell me my picture's in your passport." Like making a joke of it. He says, "The passport number, apart from one letter and one number, is my passport number." Wow. How the hell did you do it? I went, so I laughed it off. I went, "Do you know what, mate? Random luck."
Yeah.
He went, "No." I went, "Yeah." I said, "But we still get the free drinks, right?"
Yeah. Still, I mean, even unintentional, I still get some drinks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Totally.
You know, stick to the deal. You know what I mean? And there was things like that happened. So no biggies.
Sure.
But, that type of thing.
Things that you could put off to coincidence or
my
synchronicity.
grandparents used to read palms, tea leaves, that sort of thing. So I don't know if that's any connection.
Well, no, but it's definitely
certainly an
being
interest.
brought up with an open mind.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
not being closed off religiously from it, something like that. But the reason I ask those questions is your frame of reference to the world of remote viewing. And the fact of one of the things I love to bring up, because people ask me all the time, like, "I'm not clairvoyant, I can't do that." It's like, you don't have to be clairvoyant. You don't have to have any kind of psychic ability. It's kind of like the fact of your radio tuner is absolutely getting all kinds of noise on the sideband of it. It's just being filtered out. So it's learning to strip that filter off and receive the rest.
Yes.
And what's funny is after you start remote viewing, frequently the clairvoyance starts. Frequently the mediumship starts.
It sort of opens a gate and boom. And I totally agree with you. I mean, I personally believe we're all psychic, but it's dormant in a lot of people. Yeah. And it's no good if people want to say, and that's fine. What a load of rubbish. It's fine. I'm not here to convert anyone from my perspective. But I totally agree with you. It's like erecting a mast. You're tuning into a frequency. Excuse me. And then more things will come and you go, "Oh, wow, hang on."
And even the fact of
and receptive, of course. Yeah.
And one of the other things that people ask me is like, it must be very easy for you, given your religious background, given your background of like, ecstatic prayer, meditation, things like that. And what I normally tell them, which was evident in your story, like you said, as you were trying to silence your monkey mind and get into meditation, is when this happened. And that's normally what I tell them is, oh, no, as opposed to hard meditation or prayer where you're trying to silence that and get to a point of stillness. This, you're trying to let the monkey type. You want to let the monkey write everything down, and just let it flow.
Yeah, free flow.
And it's interesting the fact that while you were trying to meditate and trying to silence that is when that flood of information came to you.
And in the building, it wasn't quiet. So it wasn't, like a serious... Or anything in the background or anything like that. It was quite chatty, not too noisy. And this is why when I remote view, I say, for me, simplicity is key, right? Don't overthink anything. Keep it as basic as you can. Then the left brain's not, "Oh, hang on," and we're going into all sorts of things. Yeah. Right? And then it free flows. It may or may not be correct, and it's how we interpret it, of course, and put it down in descriptors, sketches, and summaries. But it's just, as you say, it's just being open to it. Once you sort of put up that mast and open up to it, and I'm coining your thing now with the mast, you will, pardoning the pun, be receptive, and things will come through. Right. And then you find other things, and it becomes more powerful. And it's like, wow.
Yeah. And it's interesting, since I have repicked up my remote viewing here in the last couple months, and gone through a couple other personal things, an ayahuasca journey, things like that. The description I have given to people is, it's almost like I'm a raw nerve. Even this morning, just sitting up and having breakfast, it was like, I for some reason became overwhelmed with emotion. And I just kind of started exploring that in my own space. And like, okay, where is this reverberating from?
Yeah.
You know, like this may be somebody near me. This isn't being sourced from me right now. I can feel that.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing in my head that was like, oh, you know, thinking about my son and I got misty. You know, like it happened last night. I saw this guy at lunch and he came and sat down. He was probably about 80 something years old. And then his son came and sat down and they started laughing. It was just the two of them on a cruise.
Wow.
You know,
That's good.
I heard the dad like, it was so nice, just the two of us. And I welled up
That's
because it was
good.
like, oh, I can only
Yeah.
hope at 80 that my son would do that for me.
That's perfect.
But it wasn't a moment like that. It was just something that randomly came from nowhere that I received and I was tapped into for a minute. And realizing that and exploring that is where a lot of this comes from, being able to
It is.
just kind of receive and accept.
I got told, I totally agree with you there, Chris. I got told when I started this, and you can choose or choose not to do meditations. I like to do them, right? I find it very helpful, not just with remote viewing for me. You know, but I got told you will see the world in a different way, and boy, do you see the world in a different way.
Yeah.
And, you know, people sort of, I say, mold it, take training, and then sort of, that's your foundation. So I liken it to the Leaning Tower Rapisa, right? So it was meant to be obviously vertical, and now it's, you know, like this, no foundation or proper foundation. And I liken the training to a foundation. Get the correct foundation is as it should be, and then whatever methodology you use, right, tackle the training or add a few bells and whistles what work for you.
Yeah.
Like is what I do. Some people have heard of, some people haven't. And just let it flow and work with it, and it will start to gather momentum, traction.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, and that's just it. When you're working with students, when you're working with people that you're helping introduce this to, I've found it very interesting talking to you over the last few days because you don't necessarily ascribe to any of the typical RVs. You're not necessarily a controlled remote viewer like I am, very much into the controlled process because I like the laboratory aspect of it.
So it works for
I
you.
like the research aspect and the idea that I can chart all of this, that I can put all of this into a database and it's contributing to something. But there's also, you know, associative remote viewing and extended remote viewing. And even yesterday, the outbounder exercise, or day before, the outbounder exercise that we had, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
And even hearing some people, you being one of them, that outbounder is not really something that you can key into really well.
Yeah,
You know?
what it was, an outbounder, I actually do pretty good on them.
It was the fact that it was in the past.
Correct. It was an outbounder beacon where, you know, Mr. Smith had gone to the location, set an intention to put what they call a beacon. I don't really work with that, but it's individual again.
Sure.
And it's said to enhance the perception of the remote viewer for that location. Now, I would just rather have a target number, for instance,
sure,
and tune into it. Outbounder for me, which is right, is where a person will go, as you know, to a location, and then you said to describe it. So is he sat on in a park on a bench having a coffee, a hot dog, you know, reading a newspaper, and obviously try and perceive what's going on, type of thing.
Yeah. And now, how do you begin to teach somebody the process of remote viewing when you take on a student?
You mean from scratch, like day one? Are you doing Chris Welcome? Right. I will go through things, the basics. I will give a brief history of remote viewing, just so what it is with students. You're going to have some what's maybe took training, maybe quite developed, some who's had a go, and some who's just come across the term.
Yeah.
So what I say to the class is, look, there's different levels of experience, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves and just say, starting with Chris, just say your name, where you're from, and if you've done any remote viewing before. And then I can get a bit of an handle. Oh, well, Chris is studying CRV. Such a body has never heard of it. And I'll say, right, I'm going to start from scratch. So some of you may have heard this before, but it's for the benefit of the other students. And I'll go through the terminologies, you know, the aesthetic impact, emotional impact, all this, tangibles, non-tangibles, which we know are descriptors. I'll go through how we do sketches, what movement commands are all about to get you closer to an area above it and to describe it. But I keep it simple and I'll say, look, all you're doing is describing in simple words what you were feeling, what you were seeing, hearing, etc. And impressions, they're sketches. So if you see, oh, there's a picture, sketch a picture or a square. It doesn't matter. If you can say, oh, this looks like, we'd call that a biological, as you know, because it's technically living. Well, it is. You wouldn't say flower. And maybe you could pick up on the dark pink.
Yeah, flower would be natural.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So I would start with that. And even though I don't do control remote viewing, I like to say you have choices, right? It's no good having the shoe store. It's like Henry Ford, any colour as long as it's black. You know what I mean? Right. You've got to give people choices and help them to say, oh, I like that one. No, I don't. It doesn't work for that. I like that one. It's like a buffet, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know? So I'll go through the basic ideograms so the newbies can sort of, oh, right, okay, yeah, that's a biological and that's water and this is that. And I'll explain, after writing the number, it's a quick ideogram, and I sort of laugh and say, up to, for now, it's a scribble. Just focus on it's a scribble. Don't overtax your brain.
Yeah.
And then I'll, even though I don't use it, show them how to probe and get impressions, soft hard and all the rest.
Sure.
And we'll go through that part. Then I will show them how to feel the ideogram and go around that way. And it sort of develops from there. Then I will show them, do it with an ideogram if you want to, right? But for now, use it.
Yeah.
And then go on to just trying to perceive by you, and I will tell them, look, you can have the mantra of the target number. Just keep repeating it sort of slowly in your head, like a bit of a mantra, and that helps. Just focus on the number, you know, whatever you do. So different people will say, oh, I found that really helpful.
Yeah.
And others will go, oh, well, I like the ideogram.
Well, and you know, this whole process takes me right back to my training as a teacher. The fact that we all learn tactily or audio or visually. And,
absolutely.
And some people work in numerous ways. So if you can incorporate 2 or 3, the brain works even faster. But the trying to teach somebody the fact of not only do you learn that way, but your brain processes that way.
Yeah.
Some people, because when it comes to remote viewing, some people are better at sensing texture than color. Some people are better at sensing taste than smell.
Yes.
And it's really fascinating how synesthetic that actually is.
Yes.
The idea, like in the Outbounder the other day, and it angered me because I did not write it down. And the first thing, as soon as she was like, here's your target number, I saw the color red. And I started going with ideograms instead of just writing the color. And when the target was revealed, it was the AI target, the pizza, the guy eating the pizza.
That's right.
It was a 4:3 image on a 16:9 screen with red pillars.
Red.
And it was like, like the first thing I thought of. And that's just it. It's one of those, go with what you feel. You know, don't doubt it. Put it down.
Put it down.
And you know, we've had a big conversation this weekend about monitor sans monitor. I'm one of those that my brain will start analyzing. It will start asking why the monkey picked up the stick instead of just writing down 8:15. Monkey picks up stick. Next thing, you know. So for me, the monitor kind of pulls me out of the rabbit hole by my coattail. And it's like, no, here's the path again.
Yeah.
Come back over here. You were talking about salt air. Let's come back to that, Chris. Because even on the Outbounder that we had, the first thing I got was power, but and it was a Keith Haring piece of art, things like that.
With a wallpaper background.
Yeah. And my mind, the only thing, the task was location and what was happening. And I got square building, concrete, artificial light. That's all that I got of the building. The rest was about the actual art on the wall.
Yeah.
And as I started drawing like the square and a circle with spokes on it and things coming out, I was like, oh my God, this is a power plant. And that's where my brain started going. And had my monitor been there, she would have been like, stop thinking about what it is and start describing it more. You know, go back to the circle and the spokes, Chris. Think about that. But because I thought power, I suddenly started drawing hills. The first thing I drew was the square and the circle with spokes and the thing coming off and rays coming out. And then I was like, oh, the rays, that's water. That's a water wheel, man. This is a power plant. Like, here's the hill. My brain started going, and I started sketching what my brain was making up instead of what I was feeling.
Chris, you know.
And as soon as it showed the Keith Haring piece with like the people being abducted.
Yes.
And the round circle with the spokes that looks like an eye with the beam coming out. I was like, oh my God, I drew half the painting. Had I paid attention to what I was feeling instead of what I was thinking.
Yeah. The left brain kicking in.
It kicked right
I've done it so many times
like
when I was learning and just run off on a tangent.
Yeah.
I did one for Marty Rosenblatt's APP, Applied Precognition.
Yeah.
I used to work as a Precog Pro for him, but when I started off,
wow.
He does a monthly webinar, which I recommend anybody do. Obviously, it's ARV.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on there and it's 15 minutes. And I got this slope coming down like that with a little curl up and the word China, China, China. What did I do? I call it a Bob Ross, right? I'm thinking, roof, China, Chinatown. So I start, the reason I call it Bob Ross, I'm sketching China and I'll add this and I'll do that. And I did the slope as the traditional roof of the Oriental buildings.
The pagoda slope.
Pagoda slope. And I'm going, I'll add this, and that's the Bob Ross. And it was a mountain range. Right. And I went, you idiot. I've run off on a tangent and gone, no, I don't need remote viewing or any perceptions.
Yeah.
I'm good here. I'm good here. Like your water wheel.
Yeah.
And it turns out it was a mountain range in China. So I was gifted the start on a plate. And the mountain range, one of the slopes went like this and curved up. Had I just, maybe not. And I always say this, and I'll be talking about this tomorrow. Had I give more effort and dug deeper and not run off like a madman on a tangent, I could have maybe got the mountain range. I could have got the Winter Olympics and a Chinese competitor on a ski slope.
Could have.
But I should. I did what you did. I went sort of, I'm okay. I know what it is.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, you went with thought instead of gut.
Yes,
you know,
and the left
instead of
side's
the intuition.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
We got you.
And that's just it. You know, it's interesting. The more I dig into it, the more I practice it. The fact of everything I've tried to learn from meditation, things like that, it is almost 180 degrees different. The idea of even my ADHD. And the fact of my racing brain, things like that. It's like, oh, no. It's just the fact of I am scanning frequencies.
Yeah.
Constantly scanning frequencies, you know. So yeah. It's like to be able to tap into that, to be able to let that go and let it free and free form write it down and free associate. It's a pretty amazing thing.
And it's so, I believe, individual.
Yeah.
Because people have different perceptions. You know, if you get 100 people in a room and say, quick sketch, something what makes you happy. They're possibly, maybe not everyone individual, but most of them are going to be completely different. It's what relates to the person. It's like, you know, do you want a steak? No, I'm a vegetarian. Or do you want the... It's individual taste, and that makes us unique. It's like one I did a couple of weeks ago. I did I told you the umbrella, which for me is protection. And because it was a large parasol, it was important protection. Not just like, oh, watch the glass doesn't fall off. Yeah. It was life and serious. Another person had done like a cloak for the sketch. That was ease. interpretation of protection. Somebody else did wire all coming down like chicken mesh. That was theirs.
Yeah.
So it's so individual.
Yeah.
Now, whilst the sketch itself, and you look, maybe a tutor will look and go, what are you doing? You know, and this is where it comes in, ask the questions. And then you feel it and you can sort of run over your hand. I find that one really helpful.
Yeah.
And ask, what are you protecting?
Mm.
What are you made of? You know, are you biological? Are you man-made? The obvious questions.
Yeah.
And more or less you will get some answers back. So I do a Q&A. What are you made of? And I'm feeling and I'm in the zone in the session. And then I'll get back biological, maybe just one word, but that's enough because I've distinguished now between, you know, a couple of things. Right, biological, and then push a bit more. What are you protecting? Is it protecting something inside or protecting from the outside type of deal? And you try and it narrows it down. So it is, in a way, for me, like an investigation.
Oh, sure.
You know, you arrive and go, right, okay, what's happened? And then you start.
Yeah. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand, because just one of my last sessions with my monitor was the one where we started doing multiple, like we went through the first set of videograms and then we went back and it was like, all right, let's focus on water. Okay, now let's focus on man-made. You know, and it was like a session on each one of those ideograms, then to dig deeper and dig deeper and dig deeper and coalesce more information. And I think a lot of people think that it's just a one-off and done. And the fact is a good remote viewing session is multiple small sessions put together.
Absolutely.
To assemble that data field. So.
And for me and many others, it's going back. So when you've sort of maybe done, you think you're at the end of the session and you sort of loop what's correlating, you know, with the descriptors and your sketches, and you've got a few answers to your questions. Then I was, well, right, I'm going to either go back to the beginning or start in the middle. That's one of my favorites. And I'll just go with the flow, right to the end or left to the beginning. Yeah. And it's sort of, it's not already imprinted. Oh yeah, but I already started there, you know, an hour ago or whatever it was. So I'll pick the middle, and it's something different. And I'll go, right, where was we here? What about that? And it's nice and fresh again. Yeah. And then whichever way I'm literally leaning to, and I say this on the ship while it's getting leaning.
Yeah, right.
Pardon in the
As
fun.
we sway.
And then get more information. And one of my favourite parts is the summary, because you're able to give a few like I did one. It was double blind a few years ago, and it was the Atomium in Belgium. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yep.
It was constructed in 1958. It's a large artistic thing to celebrate man's achievement with the atom. Well, we all know history with the atom. And it's all silver and like very chromy and curvy, and the spheres. And I picked up, it's like likened to a giant art exhibition, metal, curvy, shiny. And this is the part I love. When I'm at the end of a session, I'll sort of go, right, come on, let me absorb what's going on here. And I'm not on about the aesthetic impacts, emotional, they're great, of course. I mean, a bigger picture of it, a bigger feeling. And I'll say, come on, is he happy? What's going on here? Is anything a bit iffy? Somebody trying to hide something? Yeah. And with that, I'd put, obviously I can't remember word for word, but you'll see it tomorrow because I actually have the sketches. And I'd put something like, I can't shake the feeling that this could be used for the greater good or to avert danger, but I have a really bad feeling that it also, and so I'm going thinking again, really bad feeling that it could be used for something evil and terrible. Well, that pretty much sums up the atom, and what I say to students is, this is so important.
Yeah, because even the conflicting emotion.
Yes, because
you've got to
like an atom.
down.
Oh, we can do this with it. Yeah. Or we can do that with it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, and that's one of the things that I do love about the controlled remote viewing process is at the beginning, the self-check.
Yeah.
The idea of like, okay, what are my distractors? I got into a fight with my wife last night and we've not resolved that.
Yes.
God, I hate my job.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Declare
And
it, get it out there.
And then the stray cats, just things that, have popped into your mind. And
Yeah.
then the precognitions, like my
Yeah.
first session, literally, my monitor sent me the coordinate and I immediately texted her back. I see white truss, like what you would erect a radio tower on, or what I
Right.
use in my industry to fly lights to the ceiling, but powder coated white. And she was like, I don't know what truss is, but write that down and I'll write it down. That's a precog. We'll definitely talk about that. So as the session went on, I got things like that. I feel rough land that's hot and cold, like extremes of hot and cold. I see from above, like things scurrying, like ants on a field. High activity, things like that. The object, it was a place and an event that I was viewing. And I was like, the event is taking place elevated from me, and that's where I see the white truss, with like a circle and emanation, like radiation happening, like high energy.
Wow.
It was an image of the first lunar landing with the little go-kart that they had and the antenna erected on white truss.
Right,
And it was like,
yeah.
oh my God. Like, wow. The hits on a first session that were there, like I've got goosebumps now. Because it was like, this is remarkable. Just the fact that when she said that, the first thing that I saw was something major in the image.
Absolutely.
And like not close, like it was white truss.
And do you know what? When I talk about individual, I call it viewpoints. We see different things of the same thing.
Yeah.
And we describe it different, which I think is amazing. It's beautiful. Now, I've actually done that particular target, right? All very similar. It was Neil Armstrong, moon up landing. He's on the moon buggy. And what I got, I didn't know it was the moon. I didn't put moon. I'm seeing sort of slightly rocky, mountainous, grey area, very dusty, deserty, right? And I thought, I'm seeing, because he was obviously in the spacesuit and all this, and he's on the bugger, and I thought, I'm seeing metallic and something still sat on something, but very statue-like. So you see the different ways we get, and this is why, on an operational thing, which is obviously a very serious thing for remote viewing, as you know, a team of maybe six people, and your information is brilliant, my information is brilliant, but put all that together for the analysing, which is a major part, as you know, you have got one hell of a report.
And that is where, like we were talking with Cindy the other day, that is where I am a fan of AI, and I cannot wait till AI gets a hold of Lynn Buchanan's database, gets a hold of IRVA's database, gets a hold of SRI's database of information, and starts culling hits and misses and similarities, and which people are better at this, which people are better at that.
I was with Prue Calabrese last week, as you know, and she is a quite a computer whiz. Right, she's a forensic computer data analysis, and she is ready to finish an app, which she's going to make available to everyone, which will analyze all your remote viewing feedback.
Awesome.
And she's letting me know when it comes out soon. I mean, she did say, if I can say this, she messaged me last week and said, Carl, please send everyone my love who's on the IRVA cruise and say hi. And she's a beautiful lady. And and she's working on that. These things, like you're saying with the AI, need to be brought in.
Yeah.
And not specifically, obviously, an AI photo, but the AI can help us so much.
That's right.
to get
It's
it
not-
and move it
yeah.
forward,
And-
and gain traction.
Yeah, because it's not about AI viewing for you.
Of course.
It's about AI helping you call the data
Yes.
in a cold and
And
emotionless way.
The time,
In
yes,
a
will
cold
just
and
be
emotionless
so
way.
efficient.
Yeah.
And it will help all of us. The people who were moving on remote viewing, like yourself, me, and many others, the new people coming in, I think for the younger generations, right? You know, we're getting old, mate. You know what I mean? To them, we're ancient. But the younger ones, oh yeah, AI. It's like, oh, we know about that. We do that. They might have more of an interest that
That's
they
right.
can work. But if you go, oh, there's a boring sheet
Well,
of
and
paper and
they'll
that's it.
naturally have a different idea of how to activate it within the
Yes,
field
and
as
this
well.
is what I love. Everybody's got an angle on
That's right.
input. And it's like, for me, looking, it's like, say there's a circle and there's a particular thing. It can be palm trees, a hammock, and a bit of tide coming in, and maybe a deck chair and a beach ball. But then let's block it off into quarters, right? And you're a remote viewer on the first quarter, I'm on the second, third, fourth. It's the same thing. We're going to have similar data or correlating, but we see different things. I don't see the palm tree. That's in your section.
Yeah.
Billy doesn't see the beach ball because that's in mine. But we're all getting the theme. Sandy. Oh, quite tropical. Feel warm, humid.
Water. Yeah.
Of course. And this is the way I look at it from individuals. When I've interviewed many people in the past as an investigator, everybody has a different story, right? It's like, can you describe the lady, please?
Yeah.
Oh, she had a red coat on. Next, oh, it was yellow. Oh, she didn't have a coat.
Yeah.
And it's so seemingly manic.
Yeah.
But then you sort of pick up on different ones and then go back to them. All right. Can you tell me again?
Can you elaborate?
Of course, please elaborate.
And you know, much like I say regularly with Curious Research, the closer to the point of impact you get that data, the better it is. You know, that's so why correct. I came up with the data journal. It's like, write it down when it happens, not when you get back to camp.
Yes.
Not when you get home the next morning. By
Get
that point, you've already started processing that through your filters of belief, through your filters of experience.
Yes.
Everything else. Like, you are already corrupting the data by the time you've gotten back to camp and you've been thinking about it for 30 minutes. You've already begun the corruption process.
I got asked, do you need like certain, you know, diplomas in this or a degree? I went, no, it's nothing. Take intelligence out of it.
Yeah.
Right? Just be open. Just be open. Let it come through and you will develop your own style once you've received training in whatever methodology like yourself now with CRV, and then you'll go from there and you will just become better and better and better. And it will just, what I call fan out, but what is fitting to you. And wow.
Yeah.
And you never stop learning.
Well, and that's just it. We never stop learning from each other. We never, like I said in my talk the other day, research does not occur in a vacuum. We have to lean on each other. We have to build communities around this. And with that in mind, as we've got a few minutes left, let's talk about your upcoming effort to help bring remote viewing communities together. And where people can get a hold of you for remote viewing work, for remote viewing instruction, things like that. Carl.
Right. Well, obviously with being over, I think I've been over in America now about 3 weeks on the cruise now. So when I get back, I'm straight onto a web page, and then I will contact you with that, obviously. I'm making 2 brand new Facebook pages so people can come on them. One is for remote viewing training and services. The other, what I'm doing a remote viewing one in South Africa, specifically for the South Africans, because that's the first port I'm going to be training, right?
Yeah.
So they can ask questions, all get together, see what it's all about. Then, say Texas at Easter type of thing, spitball in here, I'll do one there. Then what I'm going to do, these groups, as I've been to one, I'm going to amalgamate so it forms a larger group. So people can say, hey, oh, I'm from Texas, I'm from South, oh no, I'm from Florida, and everybody's everywhere. And then, you know, it starts building and building, and it's not to specifically get a large group. I'm already a moderator on the largest Facebook group with others, run by Alexis, for remote viewing. It's to get the word out.
That's right.
And social media, obviously, an amazing thing.
And once again, research doesn't happen in a vacuum. If a remote viewer in Texas can get together with a remote viewer in South Africa and have them remote view the same target,
Yes.
You're talking about now somebody who is outside of a political system, who sees the world in an entirely different way.
Yes.
And that's a lot of why I wanted to talk with you, and why I wanted to talk with Luciano, is like, because you're living in a different part of the world, you are not influenced and filtered by the same politics that we are here.
Yes.
We aren't influenced and filtered by the same politics.
And
you
isn't
are
that
over
amazing?
there. And those things make a big difference in how and what you receive.
Absolutely.
And how and what you block out.
And you know, this is why I come up with a concept of taking remote viewing on the road, the training.
That's right.
Because I thought, for me, it's in person. I see why people do it on the internet, and I get that, right?
Yeah.
And on the ground, boots on the ground, what I'm doing, there's a lot more logistics, moving parts.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't mind that. You know, work hard, do some research, and taking it to the people who maybe can't afford the flight to the UK or America.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take it to them, right? It's going to be cheaper than the flight they'd have to pay to get to the United Kingdom or the States, but they're getting in person as well, the conference room and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
So this is what I'm doing, and by doing that, I'm also, and this is a big thing for me, going to collate all the information of the sessions, and I like, you know where I'm going with this, of not how did they do, but how did they perceive it. So how did South Africa perceive this? And I'm not going to go, oh, the USA, I'm going to do states. So how did Texas, the remote views from Texas, how did they perceive this?
Yeah.
And then how did the ones in Florida? What about in Montreal in Canada?
Exactly.
What was their take on it? I'm doing one in Scotland, in Edinburgh, at the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle Centre.
Cool.
How did... Now there, you probably get, because I've been in attendance years ago for one of those on a forensic mediumship course. You probably have Irish, some Europeans, English, Welsh,
yeah,
Scottish.
You'll have a conglomerate.
But I can narrow that down, you know, UK, Europe, and say, and what was, and it's not who did best or any of that rubbish, it's how did they perceive this against Chris. He was one of my students, so to speak, in Texas. And what about those in New York?
Yeah.
How did they perceive it?
How did the social morals and mores of a society change the way you view?
And I'm trying to sort of deconstruct it a little, break it down, because so many states, obviously, in the USA, but so many different views depending on the states.
That's right.
Right? Obviously, UK is a lot smaller, and England is just a bit of a north-south divide. But the USA is going to be amazing to collect all the different states' data, and South Africa and the UK stroke Europe, and go, wow, what was their viewpoints? And I'd love in the future to chat with you about that. And say, look, Chris, I've got, look at this.
We will be
maybe we can find and say, wow.
Yeah. Well, we will definitely be keeping abreast of everything that you're doing. It's been exciting talking to you over the last few days. Let everybody know where they can go to get in touch with you right now, things like that.
At the moment, I'm on Facebook. It's just a personal page, Carl, C-A-R-L, Mc, capital M, small c. My email is Carl Anthony McLelland, C-A-R-L-A-N-T-H-O-N-Y, M-C-L-E-L-L-A-N-D, quite long, right? The remote viewing company name is going to be a lot shorter, folks. A lot shorter. You don't want to run out of pens writing that down.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the time.
Thank you,
I
Chris.
appreciate it. It's been great meeting you, great hanging out the last few days, and it's been fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show. While you are online checking out everything from Carl Anthony McLelland, as well as the International Remote Viewing Association, make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousRealm.com is where you can like, follow, subscribe, share. It's where you can find all of our videos from live events on our events page, and all of the videos from our guests and colleagues on our videos page. When we come back from this quick commercial break, we will have our continuing coverage of the International Remote Viewing Association 25th Anniversary Cruise right here on the Mariner of the Seas right after this.
The key to good science is good research. At the heart of good research is a good data set. With the field observation and encounter log from Curious Research, you can easily keep track of your investigative information all in one place, making it easier to review cases and readily see comparisons and contrasts between them. Whether out in the woods squatching, in a back room gathering EVPs, or using high-tech gear to track UFO, UAP activity, this easy-to-carry, pocket-sized scientific data log is the perfect companion for any field researcher. You can find your copy of the Curious Research Field Observation and Encounter Log at Amazon.com or visit the official Curious Realm store at curiousrealm.com/store to reserve your copy for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is curiousrealm.com/store.